Sometimes I show you lots of data. At times it might be a little bit bewildering for some who are not paying full attention, and I understand. Tonight, I'm going to make it nice and simple. I'm not going to be particularly subtle. I'm not going to be using any clever metaphors, and I'm not going to be bombarding you with statistics. Just a reminder that it's not us, it's him. Remember when he said this?
My word is my bond.
Well, I think we all know there's 3 letters that apply to him all the time. It's a lie. Now, why do I know it's a lie? And why do I know lie is not too strong a word? Because just a couple of years ago, as Prime Minister, he used that very word to describe the opposition in Parliament. Funnily enough, the Speaker didn't have a problem back then.
It is a lie.
So, let's go through the many lies of Anthony Albanese and the Labor government. Of course, the original lie was the one told before he became Prime Minister. The promise in 2022 that if you voted for a Labor government, they will lower the cost of living. How does that work out? Well, of course, if you just have a look at the living standards, Australia is the little orange bit at the bottom, beneath countries like Belgium, Italy, Chile, Austria. We are way at the bottom compared to Portugal, Denmark, the US, the evil US, and the hapless UK. And of course, when it comes to lowering the cost of living, one of the biggest expenses for at least a third of the country is trying to pay off the house that you live in. It might be your first home, it might be your second, it might be your forever home because you've got kids. Well, there have been not 1, not 2, but 15 interest rate rises under the time of Anthony Albanese as Prime Minister of this country. The original promise, a Labor government will lower the cost of living. Yeah, that's a lie. And then, of course, there's the one that was there again before they became the government, one that people seemingly bought into, which was that Australia desperately needed to change its energy system. And if we did it, there'd be a major reduction in your power bills.
Reducing power prices by $275. That will reduce power prices by $275. $275. $275 a year. $275. $275. $275. $275 a year.
Yeah, I don't need to show you anything. You've lived it. A lie. Another lie. What about when it comes to immigration? This government was telling us towards the end of 2023 that they were going to get on top of it, that they were going to get things back to a sustainable level. Well, even in the budget that came around last week, they were wrong by a football stadium of people. Again, my sources here are the far right wingers at the ABC. But obviously, COVID was the problem, right? Well, let's have a look again at the hard right-wing statisticians who just love to point out the failures of the Albanese government, where their sustainable is still way above pre-pandemic levels. So they were going to get immigration to a sustainable level? Yeah, that's a lie too. Then, of course, there was the promise of a more transparent, a more open, a more honest government.
The 2026 federal budget just landed, and Treasurer Jim Chalmers has done something genuinely remarkable. He has managed to change 2 of the biggest property tax settings in Australia, capital gains tax and negative gearing, after the government had repeatedly pledged before the election that neither would be touched. That takes a particular kind of policy confidence. Or, depending on your perspective, a very short national memory. Welcome to Federal Analysis. Let's break this down properly. On the 12th of May 2026, Chalmers delivered his 5th budget as Treasurer, describing it as the most important and ambitious budget in decades. The centerpiece of the tax changes is this: the 50% capital gains tax discount has been replaced by a discount based on inflation with a minimum 30% tax on gains, and negative gearing has been limited to new builds, with current arrangements grandfathered in. Now, Those are significant structural changes to the property tax system. The question the opposition and many commentators are raising is not whether the policy has merit. Economists are genuinely divided on that, but whether a government that specifically ruled these changes out before an election has an obligation to honor that commitment once in office. The government's argument is that circumstances have changed and the housing crisis demands action. Chalmers pointed out that since 1999, house prices have risen over 400%, more than twice as fast as average incomes, and argued the changes will help around 75,000 Australians achieve home ownership. Economists like Greg Jericho from the Australia Institute have described this as probably the single best thing in the budget. But not everyone agrees. Professor Peter Swan from UNSW cautioned that similar attempts were made by Treasurer Paul Keating 40 years ago and had to be reversed due to unintended consequences, warning the changes could affect housing investment and push people toward other asset classes. Opposition Shadow Treasurer Tim Wilson confirmed the coalition would repeal the changes if elected. So the political story here is really two things happening at once. There is a substantive housing affordability debate with legitimate arguments on both sides. And there is a separate accountability question about pre-election commitments and whether voters received accurate information about what this government intended to do with property taxes. Both of those conversations matter, and neither one cancels out the other. That is your federal analysis for today. If sharp, no-nonsense breakdowns of what is actually happening in Australian policy are your thing, subscribe to the channel and drop your take in the comments below. We will see you in the next one.